Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you another painting tutorial, this time on the Squat Ironhead Prospectors from Necromunda. These are the first squat models that we've managed to get our hands on in over 20 years. So I am super excited to get my hands on them and get some paint on them. I was actually using these miniatures on stream last night to test out a bunch of the new contrast paints. So you will see some of the new contrast paints used in this paint scheme. I don't know whether I'll be playing Ironhead Squats in Necromunda itself. What I'm personally using them for is like tester schemes for when the Leagues of Voltan come out, which I think they're a great basis for that kind of thing. So let me know at the end of this video if you think that the scheme that I came up with would work for Leagues of Voltan, and if you would try it yourself. So stick around, enjoy the video guys. So the Ironhead Squat Prospectors, absolutely beautiful miniatures, and unlike every other Necromunda game, which I get kind of frustrated in construction, so many small parts, so many options, the Squat Prospectors didn't really have this issue. I found them quite enjoyable to build, which is just an electric blush. So I went for Magmadroth Flame for the armor. This is me trying out and testing some of the new contrast paints. So as I go into this process, I'm not 100% sure what the results are going to be. I think I pulled it all together at the end, but it was definitely a fun learning experience. I definitely thought the Magmadroth color was going to be more on the orange side of the spectrum, but it's definitely got a bit more of that like tomatoey red color in it. Which is why we use some black washes later on. But for the Magmadroth paint, we just applied that to all of the armor panels or the armored pieces on the Squat Prospector miniature. So his whole chest rig, his hands, his parts of his boots, his big domed helmet, bits like that. After that, I'm going to use the new Black Contrast Black Legion. This paint is super opaque. It gives absolutely incredible coverage. Some would say the coverage is too good and it doesn't leave much in the way of contrast when it dries. So if I was to go back and redo this, I might go back to the standard black contrast paint and not use Black Legion for this. I think Black Legion definitely has some uses for base coating and stuff like that. If you just want to block in black parts of colors after you've done this kind of zenithal spray, then it's going to be perfect for that. It does give a small amount of contrast, just not as much as I probably would have liked for this stage. After this, we moved on to Iron Hand Steel, and we blocked in all the other parts of the miniature that are going to be metallic. So most of his hammer, and there's only a couple of other like belt ring loop thingies that go silver as well. So this is a quick and easy step. I like the idea of the Squat Prospector scheme that I'm doing now to be as quick as possible. Like I said, I want to get my League of Voltan color scheme out of this process. So knowing that I'm going to be doing a League of Voltan's army in this, which is probably going to have 100 models plus, I definitely want to have something that's really quick and easy. Retributor Armour Gold was then used on all of the other metallic bits to make that pop out. So it's big belt buckle and other parts of the seismic hammer. Keep calling it a seismic hammer. I don't actually know what it's called. Seismic hammer just seems to be stuck in my head. But yeah, you just pick out alternating parts of the metallics on the miniature with the Retributor Armour Gold. With that applied, that is for me, the miniature is all base coat. It's time for wash. So what I did is I used Fugan Orange shade on all of the armor and Null Oil shade on everything else. Now, this is also me using the new shade paints and the reformulated ones. I am extremely comfortable with the old shades. I know how to use them down to a T. I know how much, how thick, all of those things. I do not know that for these. So when I applied the Fugan Orange shade across the armor and the Null Oil off everything else, after it had dried, I was quite disappointed. It didn't leave the effect that I was hoping or that I expected shades to do. In fact, when I was done and it was all dry and the base was done, I just didn't think it looked shaded enough. So I actually went back in with a second coat of Null Oil, and this time I also applied it all over the armor panels of the miniature, just because I wanted to get those shadows and shade parts in all the recesses that I didn't think one coat of shade had achieved. So whether that is now the future of shades, that if you like me preferred the older kind of thicker coat of paint, perhaps 2 coats of shade are the answer. I will of course be experimenting with the shades and all the new contrasts a lot more in upcoming videos. And I'm curious to know what other people's thoughts on the shades are. So if you do have any opinions or anything you've discovered whilst using any of the new shade paints, I would love to hear. Please drop in the comments below and help me out. While the shade is drying on this miniature, I wanted to say thank you again for the continued support for me and the 365 project. The Mediocre Hobbies channel has grown to over 16,000 subscribers as of me recording this video right here. So thank you guys so much. If you are enjoying my content and you are not involved in the channel already, there's a number of ways you can do that. First of all, watching my videos and liking them. It's a huge help. Dropping comments pushes it even further and makes more people see my videos. Subscribing to the channel is obviously a super important thing, and the more people that subscribe, the bigger impact it will have. If you do enjoy my content and you want to support me and the 365 project even further, there are links to things like my Patreon below. Thank you guys so much, and let's get back to painting. Once the second Nolan Oil shade had dried, I was quite happy with the result, and I could then move on to the layering process. So I went for Sunz Scarlet because I really wanted to kind of push away from the starting tone on the armor. Originally, when I started this project, I wanted to go for an orange tone, and that's why I had used the Magmadroth color. But as soon as I saw that it was that red kind of tone, I was like, okay, I'm just going to play into this. So instead of trying to push it back towards the orange spectrum, which would make all the shadows and shades look really bizarre, I'm going to stick with the red. So Sunz Scarlet, I layered up all of the armor panels on the miniature. I was quite happy with the result. I may do another tester with one of the other miniatures and really try and get the orange scheme that I wanted. And just leave this guy as a nice little red tester. I suppose Prospector dwarves, they could all be different colors. Have a little bit of fun with their own personal equipment. But yeah, I took my time. I definitely enjoyed this stage of painting the layering. Keeping the model as neat as possible while also getting all those recesses in. So this was the red after I'd layered it. I was quite happy with the result. Thought the model was finally going somewhere. Went to Corvus Black because, like I said before, the black contrast paint was so black that it's really hard to see any kind of definition. So I went in with Corvus Black and highlighted all of the raised parts, all of the creases, all the folds, all those kind of bits and pieces with that, just to make the black parts of the miniature pop a little bit and not look quite so flat. And if you've noticed, while I was waiting for the original batch of shades to dry, I also got the miniature based up. This matches my Ash Wastes basing scheme video that I did for the new Necromunda, so there'll be a link at the top of the screen here. So if you're curious as to how I did that basing scheme, just go and watch that quick 4 or 5 minute video and it will show you everything you need to know. So after the Corvus Black was applied to all of the black parts, it was then time to do something about the metallics. And for that, I just jumped over to a nice, bright and vibrant Ironhead Steel. Ironbreaker, apologies. And used that to layer up all of the metallic parts. So I just did some really light highlighting. I wanted to keep the kind of tarnished old metal look. As you can see, it's just a couple of line highlights. And along those ribbed areas, just the highest points, got a quick touch of silver. And then I went in and used the same color to highlight all of the gold parts as well. I find that silver highlighting gold is something that just works really well, ties the two kind of metallic colors together. It still definitely feels like gold, but just something with a little bit more depth. So quickly layered up that, the other parts on the hammer that were gold, and his big gnarly belt buckle, and of course his knuckle duster ring thingies that he's got on his power fist. I then used one of the new Asurmen Blue contrast paints to paint inside the visor. I also used the Ironbreaker paint to paint the slit of the visor. So then I went in with this blue contrast paint. It just makes it look like it's a slightly kind of glowing helmet. Something a miner in the dark might have, so you could see a little bit better. With this, as I remembered, he was a prospector, a miner, a scavenger. His equipment was looking just a little bit too neat and tidy for me. So I just went in with a really quick hack and I just gave all of the armor and panels a really light dry brush of silver. All I'm trying to do is catch the edges where this model would be kind of scraping past wreckage or down tunnels or whatever. And I would just be nicking his paint job as he's going down. It adds a nice bit of depth to the miniature. Definitely feels more like the ragtag band that these Squat Prospectors actually are. This is the kind of stage that I don't know whether I would put on my Leagues of Voltan, as they're supposed to be like good gear, kept, but the Prospectors scuttling around Necromunda trying to steal what they can, or Prospectors salvage what they can, and would have these kind of chips in their armor. And with that, we have a very quick, very achievable Squat Prospector miniature. Let me know down below in the comments if you liked this particular scheme and think that I should go with it for my Lord's League of Voltan, or whether I should try some other bits and pieces out. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and make sure you do the normal things like comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.